Good morning. It's Monday, April 17th, and we're in the E&C committee with our friends from Montgomery College and MCPS to talk about the CIP, our continuing work. We're going to talk about, and I'll let Dr. Williams and his team introduce themselves momentarily and make any comments, but we're going to talk about the second round of non-recommended cuts. I know it's not your favorite topic. It's not ours either, but it's something that we have to do to be responsible, and talk through the proposed non-recommended cuts, but also their impact. We want to make sure that people understand what this would mean and be very clear about that, even if we do have to take these steps as we move through the budget process. I've asked, just to set context, we had additionally asked, I wrote at this committee, we wrote a letter asking for a first set of recommended cuts. You sent that back. We considered those. We didn't take some, considered others. And then President Glass asked both the parks and the college and MCPS for a second round of cuts, and that's what we're going to talk about today, and talk about the impacts. So I'll turn it over maybe quickly to Mr. Howard, and then we'll turn to Dr. Williams. Oh, okay, so our staff, I'm sorry, whoever from our council staff, good morning.
Good morning, council members. I'm Nazifa Hossein, and I'm one of the year-long fellows with Central Staff, and I'll be starting off this work session this morning. So I'll begin with an overview. On March 15th, the executive transmitted additional amendments to the FY 23 to 28 CIP. These amendments included a revised affordability reconciliation projects for the college with an additional $2.9 million in non-recommended GO reductions. On March 16th, the Education and Culture Committee met for their work session to review the college CIP request. Chair Jawando shared these changes would be reviewed at a follow-up work session because both the college and council had just learned of this change a day prior. On March 17th, the council president requested that Montgomery College provide the council with a second set of non-recommended reductions. On April 3rd, in response to the council president's request, the college submitted additional non-recommended reductions. Moving on to the approved non-recommended reductions, the college submitted their first set of non-recommended reductions from the Germantown Student Services Center project. They would defer $2 million in FY27 and $4 million in FY28, equaling to $6 million in GO bond funding from FY27 and FY28 to the beyond 6-year period. On March 16th, the Education and Culture Committee reviewed and approved these changes. For the additional non-recommended reductions, the college submitted their second set of non-recommended reductions from the Germantown Student Services Center project. President Williams expressed this is the only sizable project in the capital budget without funds fully appropriated. The college would defer $400,000 in FY25 and $500,000 in FY26, $1 million in FY27, and $1 million in FY28, equaling to $2.9 million in GO bond funding from FY25 to FY28 to the beyond 6-year period. This project is funded half and half by the county and the state. The change in county funding would also require moving the same amount of state funding to the beyond 6 years period. Altogether, the total change, including the prior actions on March 16th, shows a $17.8 million deferral outside of the 6-year period, $8.9 million in GO bonds and $8.9 million on state aid. Council staff agree that the Germantown Student Services Center project is the most reasonable project to take this reduction. Given the current affordability constraints in the CIP and President Williams' statement on how this change creates a larger impact on this project than the initial reductions discussed, Council staff recommend approval of the additional non-recommended reductions as submitted by the college and identifying the $2.9 million as a high priority for restoration during the CIP reconciliation process. During the CIP reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Williams.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Jawando. Good morning, committee members. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to join today. Thank you for your team's continued good work on the packet. Really appreciate that. And just really grateful for your approval of the college's initial budget. It's originally recommended by the county executive. And I want to just thank you again for the opportunity to share a little context, right? Talk about, being here is not necessarily what we all want to do, but let's provide context. And we do believe that the requests that we've put in front of you are both reasonable and fair. For a little bit of detail on that, the library renovations they're just that. They are renovations. They're not tear downs as originally envisioned. And the library for the Germantown campus, which is rolled into the Student Services Center, as you all know, was done so that the project could best leverage state aid. It's the reason why those two projects have come together to create that one larger project. As you know, and you heard, we quickly agreed to the $6 million reduction, which was approved when we last met. The only place, as kind of just reminding it, that the $2.9 million reduction in GO bonds, as was just noted so clearly, is our Germantown Student Services Center, again, which has the library. This further reduction puts this very critical project at risk. This project and what it means, Chairman and council members, committee members, is it's a project about access and success. It's a project that puts so many of the needed resources that our residents require in order to gain access to Montgomery College in one place. Those are the same resources that they'll be using throughout their educational time at the college. Things like registration, advising, financial aid, paying for their actual college career, navigating their college career. Simultaneously, and you heard about extending, it also puts this project at risk at a time where the Montgomery County delegation actually just secured $7 million during this session. $7 million additional dollars to fund the state's share of the cost to launch this important project on time. That was just done, and we're very thankful to the delegation. Finally, I'd be remiss if I did not note that our operating request require and ask for no new funds from the county. Again, requests are reasonable and fair. All that said, you have mountains of complex decisions to make and a lot to navigate. So we know that, and we trust that you'll make the best decision for the students, the residents, for the county as a whole. Know that Montgomery College is and always will be the community's college, and we remain thankful and appreciative for your continued support. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
I appreciate that, Dr. Williams. And as normal, as usual, in continuing a long tradition of Montgomery College, you're gracious, and you left out things that probably could have strengthened your case because you're not trying to make it hard on us. But I will bring up in your defense that this project has been in the CIP for 16 years.
Yes, it has, Chairman.
And is something that is as you eloquently stated, is needed for all those reasons that the services that it provides to our students in our county. I want to see if my colleagues have anything to say and before we take any action, but I think the council staff articulated it very well, that we would accept the other reductions and then put this $2.9 million on the reconciliation list, realizing there's going to be a lot on that list, but put it as a top priority in the bucketing of priorities that under the guidance that we've been given from the council president, how we're going to take up the list this year, which is not uncommon, but put it in the highest priority. I'm glad you mentioned the $7 million from the state, because that obviously just happened last week, and we always want to be in the business of lining those things up. I guess the one question I had, and I'll turn to colleagues, is just on the construction timeline itself. What would the delay do? Obviously, you never know about the cost increases, but right. Where are you in the process, and how do you see, what's your best knowledge on how you see that impacting it if this delay were to happen?
So I will turn it over to Ms. Christina Schramm for that, get a little more detail, Chairman.
Sure. Right now we have it scheduled to open for spring 2029 classes, but with this funding deferral, because it is 2.9 million and it also has an additional state share, which is 5.8 million, that'll be pushed out beyond the 6-year period. We see that it would probably be delayed until fall of 2030.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 1 year, baby. And then we wouldn't be unclear about the cost increase necessarily, but you think only a 1 year delay.
Yeah, and there probably would be cost increase associated with the delay as well.
Colleagues? Okay. Councilor Alvarado?
Thank you. It was well said. So just a couple thoughts. One, I want to uplift what Dr. Williams just mentioned towards the tail end of his testimony, which is that Montgomery College has been a fantastic partner and has always been very thoughtful and reasonable in their approach, both in the operating and the CIP. This would be a missed opportunity, clearly, and I think the investment of the state in particular underscores why it would be helpful, because we want to demonstrate to our partners in Annapolis that when they make such a significant commitment to the county, which they have at record levels during this past year, that we're going to work with them. And times will not always be this great. Who knows what the state budget will look like this year, but they did a fantastic job bringing home those resources. So I concur with putting it on the reconciliation list and going through the tough process in the end as we make difficult decisions, but this should at least be on the table for consideration, in my opinion.
Thank you. Councilor Mick.
Thank you. I agree with everything said by my colleagues here, and thank you for really walking us through the impact of a potential delay here. And I just wanted to add on to that seeing a project like this that we all agree is so important and so fundamental to the needs of our county on the potential hit list here really underscores what dire straits we're in. And I think it's also important to note, again, that as we see cost increases in this, if we push it out further, we're hoping that it's only a 1 year delay, but the reality is that this has been delayed for this many years for this exact reason. We don't know what 1 more year's delay would bring. We have the state aid now. If we need to find more revenue to make sure that these projects happen, I think that it is incumbent on us to make sure that this does not get pushed further out, that we're able to take advantage of that state aid, and that we do not sit by and wait for cost increases to potentially push us down the road. And noting also we've heard so many beautiful testimonies from graduates of Montgomery College, and so many of those have shown us that the importance not just as an equity issue for our students, but also that Montgomery College is an enormous driving force for our workforce development, and the plans that we have here to continue to see that grow and increase the partnership between our academic pathways and feeding into our the professional opportunities here in workforce development and economic development picture overall. This is Montgomery College is just an essential tool in that. So my hope is that our colleagues also feel the impact that this has on other priorities that I know that they hold as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Make. It's a good point made by both my colleagues, and we often I can channel Councilmember Balcom here. We were celebrating Germantown as the most diverse city in the United States. The Germantown Student Services Center of Montgomery College campus needs to be there to serve that population. It's also one of the fastest growing parts of our county. So without objection, we will accept the non-recommended reductions. Obviously, we accepted the prior ones with priority restoration for the 2.9 million and putting it on the reconciliation list. Obviously, pending the rest of our CIP discussions. So, with that, thank you. Yeah. All right, and we're going to move to our Montgomery County Public Schools, MCPS. So I think I see our great team from MCPS here. And our great team from council staff. So I'll turn it over to council staff just to kind of tee us up about where we are, and this is obviously round 2 of the non-recommended cuts discussion, but Ms. McGuire, I'll turn it over to you. Or
Yes.
Mr. Levchenko, I'll turn
thank
it
you.
over to you.
Yeah, so you heard basically the introduction with the Montgomery College round 2 reductions, similar introduction here. At the same time that those reductions were requested, we had reductions requested from the council president for the MCPS CIP. So similar exercise. We did want to briefly review the round 1 reductions, which are noted in the packet, and the committee's discussion of that back in on March 16th. There were 2 kinds of reductions that were submitted. Some were technical adjustments that the council staff were fine with, and those help a bit with the gap that we've been talking about. There were also, though, a number of substantive reductions as part of that package, including 2-year delays to Highland View Elementary School addition, as well as the Damascus High School major capital project, and then also some cuts in the later years to the roof replacement project, and reductions in FY24 to the sustainability initiatives, and then also a reduction in 24 to the ADA compliance project. And so the committee discussed those reductions in some detail at the March meeting, and as part of that, the committee was especially concerned about the ADA compliance project, and particularly noted that it wanted to try to support that and try to keep that as the highest priority to try to protect. Not that it supported the other cuts at all, but recognized that the fiscal situation was what it was. And so we still have those non-recommended reductions out there that will be part of the reconciliation process. And just to clarify, we don't have a reconciliation list the way we do on the operating side, where you have a 1-year list and you've got numbers to get to that 1-year total. With the CIP, it's a little bit of a, it's more of a, it's a 3-dimensional problem.
Right, yeah.
We have a 6-year issue or a 6-year total issue, but we also have an annual issue for each of those 6 years. So it becomes a bit of a puzzle to try to solve that issue across all the agencies and departments. But with that said, we've collected these non-recommended reductions from the agencies, parks, college, and MCPS, and also identified areas where there could be some opportunities elsewhere in the CIP, perhaps where the executive has made recommendations one way or the other, or the committees have. And those will all be part of a reconciliation discussion later. So we're still in the middle of that process. And we did get an update provide an update to the council on the gap last week. Not good news, of course, but we still have about a month to try to reconcile those numbers. We still got a lot of issues both on the macro side. We have to still work to reconcile the state aid issues across schools, transportation, and elsewhere, and identify where we are today based on the state legislative session, which recently concluded, and how that compares to what was already assumed in the CIP. So there's some of that that has to happen. And the council still has some additional CIP projects it's reviewing over the next few weeks, amendments that came over in mid-March. So there's still a lot of moving parts. This is one of the major moving parts, though, is the school CIP. And I'll turn it over to Essie to talk about the round 2 reductions that came over as part of this process today.
Thank you. And so, yes, that does bring us to the round 2 process. And as you noted earlier, the executive's March 15th transmittal did prompt the council to ask for additional reductions, largely due to the write-down of the recordation tax revenues. There are, of course, some other factors into that gap as well, but that was the primary purpose of that. On the top of page 5 of your packet does outline the second round of non-recommended reductions reductions that MCPS transmitted. And again, MCPS was able to identify some technical amendments that do help us in our reconciliation and in meeting those reductions. However, the non-recommended reductions do also include one additional major substantive change, which is a one-year delay to the Magruder the major capital project for Magruder High School. As the first round, as was mentioned, includes a one-year delay also to Damascus. And so if you look on page 6 of your packet, what we've included here is just a complete list of the completion dates for the projects that are in the umbrella project of the major capital projects for secondary, which are the secondary schools up for major renovations. And so Damascus then would have an anticipated completion date of August 2028. And I'm sorry, that is a 2-year delay for Damascus. I apologize, I misspoke. And a 1-year delay for Magruder High School would push it to 2030. It does still, again, indicate that then the high schools at that point would be sort of spread out and staggered in their completion dates across the 6-year period. Of course, as we've discussed before, when you do have to identify large amounts of funding in the CIP, sometimes these big block projects are ones where, again, spreading them out can have that benefit on the affordability side without impacting as many projects. So the staff recommendation for this is similar to the approach that the committee took in your first round, which is certainly accept the technical adjustments that do not impact scope or completion dates. And then retain the consideration of Magruder and that additional delay in the package of non-recommended reductions that you're still considering as we go through the reconciliation process. In terms of next steps, Mr. Levchenko outlined most of them, but I do just want to highlight that the council tomorrow is taking up the full CIP for MCPS for the first time, and so we will fold this in with it. But that will be the council's first review of the CIP as a whole, and then at that point, again, we will just continue to work through the overall reconciliation process as has been discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Levchenko and Ms. McGuire. Just want to provide, before I make any comments, any opportunity for Mr. Adams and MCPS, if you want to comment on these, provide that context.
Thank you, Chair Jawando and members of the Education and Culture Committee. I would say this particular second round of non-recommended reductions was challenging. You know, I believe as we talked before, much of our work is in the first 4 years of the CIP, and we really don't have many projects in those last 2 years. So, you know, when we think about a reduction that's further out, like what came through with the second round, it just really does translate into delaying projects further. So, you know, this is certainly something that we'll be taking an eye on. Obviously, this is going to be a challenging budget process for the council, but I would also caution that as we go into the next CIP, without having any other projects out there in future years, it will be difficult as we navigate projects like Eastern and Piney Branch and looking for construction funding of those. So it's just something I think, you know, unfortunately is certainly the case to provide that as a 1-year delay, but as those out years still become more and more bleak, it is something that we're paying very, very close attention to as we continue through this process. But I want to thank you for your consideration, thank you for your support, and certainly here to answer any questions you may have.
I appreciate that, and you know, as we did with the Damascus project, I think the idea that council staff has recommended, which I agree with, and allow colleagues to say where they are, is that we would accept the technical adjustments, which we appreciate you looking under the couch to find, and but not take a position at this time on the larger question of the Magruder project and try to see how that fits in. We've got a lot of things in the air. Is there going to be additional funding for the recordation tax? So, you know, we don't know yet. There's a proposal out there. We'll see. And to Mr. Levchenko's point, the three-dimensional Rubik's Cube that is the CIP, how does that all figure out? So I think it would be prudent to not accept that, but to have it out there as something that we're going to have to eventually get to. You know, we can't kick the can down the road forever. But I appreciate you providing the context and realizing that there's an impact as you keep moving them. We have a full CIP next year. that means there's a cascading effect there, and these are not small projects. So, colleagues, anything, Councilmember May.
Thanks. Yeah, Seth, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak more to the specifics of Magruder, how long they've been facing that delay, what the impact will be, what they're dealing with over there.
So yes, our Board of Education asked a very similar question in terms of what does this look like from a Magruder standpoint. So Magruder, again, is part of our major capital project, so there's sometimes an assumption that we do tear downs and rebuild, but that's not the case for the major capital projects. We look at it very specifically to the scope from a program, from an infrastructure. But from a Magruder standpoint, absolutely there's elements of that building that we're going to need to find maybe softer solutions with a further delay. 2030 is a long time to not address some of the infrastructure. So we will be looking at everything from additional modifications to our HVAC systems, obviously plumbing systems, but more importantly, the program elements. We're really, as we mentioned before, these high schools are playing a really vital role in terms of how we look at student enrollment, student growth. We talked about these high schools as being was it close to 5,000 seats at the end of additional capacity to be able to pull kids out of portables and into permanent seats. And we're really looking at it from a perspective of program. And Magruder certainly will play a big part of that. But I do think, Magruder's one where we absolutely can't wait till 2030. We will be doing some, if we do see a delay, we will be doing, different infrastructure projects such as smaller scale security, some program modifications, and obviously some of our big infrastructure elements.
So it sounds like in addition to what we can expect as an increase in cost due to inflation, if we kick this can further down the road, that there's going to be additional ways that costs go up if we continue to push this.
Well, yes, absolutely. The cost continues. Deferred maintenance obviously is a big part of this. The reason that Magruder is one of the high priorities is that the analysis that we do, which we call our it's an FCI Facility Condition Index, really looks at it from how much money you need to spend to bring it up to current standards versus replacement. It's more cost feasible to replace it today. As we continue to wait, that only grows, and we still have to continue to sink money into it from a maintenance perspective. But that maintenance just is not going to keep up. So there is cost associated with this. You see it more on the operating side. I think we had that conversation last time in terms of the longer you wait, the more you spend on the operating in terms of some of that maintenance. But yes, I think it's an unfortunate fact that we're sort of both of those budgets, operating and capital, are now definitely colliding in terms of what happens with the what ifs of delays and other funding scenarios.
Thank you. Definitely an important angle to make sure that we're covering it with the full council tomorrow as well. Thank you. Thank you,
Councilmember Alvarez.
I agree with the approach. We're at a point where we've got to pick the least worst option. There's not a lot of wiggle room here. The budget is what the budget is, and unfortunately it's projected to get worse in the upcoming couple of years if the recession hits. So I think this is appropriate, and we'll have to look at this within the context of all of the other challenging decisions that we are going to make. But if there are going to be impacts on the operating, which there inevitably will be, obviously we're going to need to take that up, and we're going to begin the operating discussion in just a couple of days. And even with the 1 year delay, we're still in a best case scenario looking at 8, 9, 10, 12 years before something really significant happens. And so it'd be valuable to make some of those short-term investments now, knowing regardless of whether this is delayed a year or not, we're still talking about a while. So just to manage expectations out in the community and make things a lot more workable currently for current students and upcoming students. So, but thank you. It's another difficult conversation we're going to have.
Appreciate that. And just so we're clear on what we're doing, I'll just restate it again that the proposal is to accept the technical changes that are outlined in the packet related to some of the smaller projects that will keep them on track, but just remove some of that funding in the early years, some of that planning money, and then defer and look at this Magruder reduction or delay, rather, in the context of the larger reconciliation, as we did with Damascus. Did I state that correctly?
Yeah. We'll have a lot of work to develop a package that meets the annual general obligation bond requirements and 6-year totals. And we've got a lot of projects in the mix on the transportation side, on the school side, including these. It's still too early to know how that's going to shake out.
Right. All right. Anything else that you all want to add? Okay. So without objection, we will move that forward to the council tomorrow, and appreciate you all coming out. And I think that's all we have for today. So we are efficient at our ENC meetings. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.